The debate over carbon emissions and climate policy is no longer confined to academic journals or political speeches. It is moving into the courts where the stakes are far higher. In February, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency rescinded its 2009 endangerment finding, which concluded that greenhouse gases threaten public health and welfare. That finding underpinned the United States government's authority to regulate carbon emissions under the Clean Air Act. Its removal strips away the legal foundation for much of U.S. climate policy and sets up a legal fight that could put the underlying science itself on trial. The challenge to the prevailing view of climate science did not begin with this case. Environmentalist and author Lawrence Solomon documented dissenting scientific perspectives in his 2008 book, The Deniers. He pointed to researchers who questioned whether the available evidence supported dominant climate models. That debate, once confined to academic circles, is now being drawn directly into a legal forum. At the center of the case is the CO2 Coalition, a U.S.-based nonprofit group of more than 200 scientists and researchers. The organization focuses on carbon dioxide's role in plant growth, agriculture, and ecosystems. It argues that higher carbon dioxide levels contribute to increased plant productivity and that carbon emissions produce global greening far more than global warming. That position is now at the center of the case. On March 20th, the coalition applied for intervenor status, which would allow it to present evidence to the court. Executive Director Gregory Wrightstone said the scientific basis for the endangerment finding is weaker than previously believed and contradicted by empirical data, peer-reviewed studies, and research. He argues carbon dioxide is not a toxin, and that rising carbon dioxide levels have produced measurable environmental benefits. The coalition also challenges how climate science is interpreted. It argues some climate crisis claims have been driven by what it calls not science, including government opinion and funding streams that reinforce it, climate models that overestimate warming effects, a consensus idea antithetical to science, one-sided peer review, and research that cherry-picks, fabricates, falsifies, or omits contradictory data. To support that argument, the coalition points to several lines of evidence. It begins with the role of greenhouse gases themselves. Water vapor accounts for about 90% of the atmosphere's heat retention, while carbon dioxide contributes much of the rest, with a diminishing effect at higher concentrations. According to the coalition, the EPA's own modeling suggests that if net zero emissions were achieved now instead of 2050, the difference in global temperature by 2100 would be only 0.17 degrees Celsius. The coalition also points to historical patterns. Carbon dioxide levels have varied widely over time, often exceeding current levels, while temperature trends have not always moved in step. The medieval warming period saw higher temperatures without industrial emissions. The Earth has also been warming since emerging from the Little Ice Age, and the exponential growth in greenhouse gas emissions since 1850 has had what it describes as very little effect on the overall trend line. Finally, the coalition points to solar activity. It says solar output strongly correlates with observed temperature changes over the past century. Solar output rises and falls alongside temperature trends, a relationship, it argues, may better match the data than emissions-based models. What is a greater factor in temperatures at home, the setting of the furnace or the insulation? If the Earth is our home, the furnace is the sun, and the insulation is our atmosphere. Humans don't change the sun at all, and barely change the sky. Whether the coalition is granted standing remains uncertain. What is not uncertain is the argument being advanced. The scientific foundation for the EPA's endangerment finding is open to challenge. If that is correct, the consequences extend beyond this lawsuit. Climate policy in the United States, and in countries such as Canada that have adopted similar approaches, rests heavily on the assumption that the science is settled. If that assumption is weakened in court, the legal and policy structures built on it will not stand.
Please like, share, and subscribe if you appreciate this content.